Hi, this is Shigeki. Today, I want to talk about something I've experienced many times, how exhausting it can be to listen to middle-aged colleagues who think they are brilliant but constantly complain about everything. Now, in general, society tells us that complaining is a bad thing, is seen as negative, unproductive, even toxic. But let's be honest, when something doesn't go the way we want, it's only natural to vent a little. Complaining is often a way to release stress. Even when people know they are complaining, they still want someone to listen. I'm no exception. I complain too sometimes. We all do. We are human. But here's the thing. Being the one listening to those complaints can be incredibly draining, especially when the complainer has no interest in solving the problem. You offer advice like, why don't you try this? Or maybe you could look at it this way. But they are not listening. They don't want a solution. They just want someone to hear them out. And if that someone is you, well, it gets pretty heavy. It's mentally exhausting to sit through repetitive and changing complaints. Still, I don't think complaining is completely useless. Actually, I believe it has potential. If we can express our frustrations in a thoughtful way through writing, art, or even humor, then complaints can turn into something more meaningful. They can evolve into self-expression, into insight, even into social critique. Because life isn't always fun or fair, especially when it comes to human relationships. There are conflicts, stress, misunderstandings. It's part of living. So when someone takes that frustration and transforms it into something constructive or creative, that's powerful. Let me tell you about an experience I had back when I worked in Thailand. I was a sales engineer at a plastic injection molding factory. It was a very typical Japanese-run factory in Southeast Asia, with lots of Japanese expats, sometimes as many as 7 at once. And, like in many such companies, there was a very clear hierarchy. Experts were at the top. Local hires, like myself, were definitely seen as lower in status. It wasn't always explicit, but it was there. One of my colleagues was also a Japanese man, around his mid-50s, working on the factory floor. He was hired locally like me and had years of experience in manufacturing. But every time I ran into him, in the break room, in the hallway, he would launch into these endless complaints about the factory and especially about the Japanese expats. To be fair, I understood his frustration. He probably felt undervalued despite his experience. Some of the expats were younger than him but had more authority simply because of the position. Maybe his ideas were ignored. Maybe he was shut down repeatedly. But the problem wasn't just that he complained. It was that his complaints never went anywhere. They were limited to that specific workplace, that specific factory. He didn't question the bigger system, capitalism, corporate structures, the nature of expat hierarchies. He was angry, but only within the narrow bubble of his immediate surroundings. And that's what made it so hard to listen to. There was no lesson to take away, no broader insight, just bitterness. I remember thinking, if you hate your job that much, why not quit? Start something new, go freelance. But I didn't say anything. I knew he would hear it. I knew he wouldn't hear it. What struck me was how little his complaints could inspire. They didn't point to change, they didn't reflect self-awareness, and they definitely didn't uplift anyone. So here's what I think. Complaints are not inherently bad, but unless they lead somewhere, toward critique, towards creativity, toward action, they are just noise. If you want to complain, that's fine, but let your complaints lead to something. Let them push you or others toward change. Otherwise, you are just stuck in the same loop, and anyone listening to you is stuck there too. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I've seen too many people let their lives be consumed by passive resentment. I've seen how exhausting that is, not just for them, but for everyone around them. So complain if you must. But think about where that complaint is going. Use it, shape it, turn it into something that matters. Thank you for listening. See you next time.